perspective how they did their conquests, but we also get a sense from the people who are conquered about the Mongols. And that's always kind of interesting because there may be limitations to those sources, but we do get to see some particular patterns. And the Mongols go beyond just being conquerors, of course. They actually do become political leaders in a lot of cases, and that becomes really interesting. But how do they do their conquests? How does a small nomadic group of people who are on horseback, ultimately conquer massive societies like Song Dynasty China? One is that they have an incredibly disciplined army. Temujin, who becomes Chinggis Khan, will set up really specific rules for discipline and, have a particularly loyal army. That's not easy to do for Chinggis Khan because that means breaking tribal bonds that used to exist. So people would be loyal to their family, their blood brothers, like he was to Januka in that primary source. Trying to break up those tribal loyalties is really hard. And so when Chinggis Khan sets up an army, he purposefully does not include people from the same tribal group. He disbands all of the tribal entities and rips people kind of out of that comfort space and puts them into a different type of loyalty, essentially loyalty to him, and it becomes an incredibly disciplined force. The Mongols are also able to mobilize resources. They are very adaptive. They do not need a lot of supplies. There are stories of Mongols on horseback who go for days and days and days, seemingly without stopping. They bring very few carts of food, travel incredibly light, and they are known for, in a pinch, if becoming very famished and hungry, breaking the blood vessel of a horse to drink the blood of a horse to have kind of a, nourishment for the long ride. This is a group of people who are really not requiring a great deal of resources. And because they are such trained horseback riders, they're able to, very quickly move, and they surprise their enemies, on a lot of occasions. Their military strategies include taking a lot of the conquered people into the army. Every single area of China that the Mongols conquer, they will take not only soldiers and individuals, they will take women to bring back to the capital city, Karakoram. They will also take people who, for all intents and purposes, are engineers who can build weapons. And many of these people are moved to other areas of the Mongol Empire or back to Karakoram, and they serve certain purposes. So there's a great deal of movement of peoples as a result of the Mongols, and that includes peoples of different skills. That is one of the ways in which, they're just using displacement in order to do that. Chinggis Khan is known famously for his decimal system. People had organization based on a numeric system of tens. So there might be 10 people who kind of have a very small unit that might have certain tasks. And then there's like, 100, warriors in a larger unit. They know who they are and what tasks they need to do. So there's this entire organization system that different warriors are part of very small groups and very large groups. And, today the U.S. Armed Forces, uses something similar. People are in small units and they're also in much larger units, and people in service, understand all of those dynamics, but it's part of the organization system. So depending on what's needed, people can quickly, kind of arrange themselves into combinations that are going to fit, the need. And that's something the Mongols were incredibly gifted at. And this entire decimal system is really something that is organized by Chinggis Khan. You can also see the arrows on the picture in the to the left. The Mongols were incredibly gifted at using arrows on horseback. They also tended to be strategic. They wore silk shirts, so if the arrow went into their body, they could easily pull it out. They had very strategic kind of ways, to go about fighting. So just since I'm looking at that picture, that's something I'll note. Another reason that the Mongols are really successful is they do kind of create a degree of unity between the soldiers. It's likely that when there was a conquest, soldiers benefited from some of the goods, some of the ways that the Mongols took treasure, if you will, from the people they conquered. Some of that likely benefited the warriors who did the conquering. There also is this very significant attempt to move from tribal warfare to fighting a more common enemy. So unity is kind of part of the strategy for Chinggis Khan. Temujin, or Chinggis Khan as a leader, could be really instrumental. He was known for being incredibly respected. His good friend Jamuka rather, was a like lifelong friend. Temujin ends up in a battle with him where Jamuka looks like he's going to win, and then at last minute, Temujin wins, and Jamuka has to, kind of show respect to Temujin. And he realizes that there can only be one leader, so that they can't, the Mongol world isn't big enough for both of them. So he concedes, his power to Temujin, who then decides to, kill Jamuka, but to do it in a very, very respectful way. Instead of doing it in one, horrific way, he's going to do it in a different way. Temujin is like known for these very consequential decisions of his leadership that also set up his reputation. He and the Mongols in general had an incredible reputation for brutality, and to some degree, this is like a psychological terrorism of sorts. This brutality was sometimes used in one location, and then others would hear about it and then send tribute to the Mongols and say, okay, we concede before you even come to our area and conquer us, we will recognize you as our leaders. And so the reputation for brutality was definitely the case, but often it served the purpose that there would be other societies that would just concede to the Mongols, without having to fight at all. And that was a strategic, decision to do that. But the brutality could be extreme, and that's something also to be aware of. When we start to look at the Mongol conquest of China, there's a couple of things, and this is just one specific location. It happens to be a place that starts to be conquered under the time of Chinggis Khan, and then the son of Chinggis Khan will continue a raid on China. The Song dynasty will not fall until the grandson of Chinggis Khan, Kublai Khan, will actually attack the Song dynasty in the 1200s. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, we're going to be looking at a case study that involves China. And as we look at that particular case study, we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the Sung dynasty before the Mongols enter and take political control, conquer and then take political control, and then also after, because we're interested in some of the changes in China as a result of the Mongols. So a few things about China. You can see the Song dynasty on the map. We'll note a few things that are just dates, and this is on your note sheet, so you want to write some of these dates in. It connects to some of the things I just mentioned. Chinggis Khan moved his troops toward the Jin dynasty. The Jin dynasty, you can see here, is north of China, of Southern Song dynasty. The Shishia is here on the map. The Jin dynasty is where modern-day Beijing is. And Chinggis Khan will be the first of the Mongols to move and conquer this area. So part of this region is taken by the Mongols. In 1215, the Mongols will destroy the capital city near modern-day Beijing. So they will attack the Jin dynasty and then destroy Beijing in the early 1200s. After the death of Chinggis Khan, Ogadai, who is the son of Chinggis Khan, will rule, and the entire Jin dynasty, Kaifeng and everything, falls to the Mongols. In the 1250s, we see the Mongols attack southern Song. And in 1279, which is after years and years of fighting, it's a brutal war. Some in China are on the side of the Mongols, many in China are not. And eventually the Mongols will win, and they will unify southern Song and Jin dynasty into the Yuan dynasty, something that looks a lot more recognizably like China. Okay, so just gives you a sense of the timeline. This conquest of China does not happen in one generation, over the course of time. The total area that the Mongols gain is 4.6 million square miles, and this is one area of many areas that the Mongols gain, so that's very significant. If you look at a map of China earlier than 1126, so we're paying particular attention to the map. You can see the Song dynasty at its beginnings in 960. And just to kind of remind you, there are a few dynasties in the post-classical period, the Sui, the Tang, and the Song. There are times when between dynasties there's like a warring period and whatnot. The Northern Song starts after this period in the time of 960. And you can see that the Sung dynasty in its beginnings from 960 to 1126 includes the city of Kaifeng, includes the Grand Canal, does not include the city of Beijing that is held by the Khitan people, but it is, pretty extensive. The Sung dynasty is pretty large, and, it is significant. Also, we see the Tangut people in Shishia. So there are other nomadic peoples. The Mongols would live, somewhere in this northern area up here. The things that start to change first happen within China. So before we even get to the Mongol attacks, the Song dynasty will split. So we'll look at that for a moment. And this happens in 1126. So before 1126, between 960 and 1126, we call the Song dynasty the Northern Song. In 1126, China is very, very worried about the Khitan people. The Khitan people seem to be aggressive. There seems to be a fear amongst the Chinese that the Khitan people could take over more land. So there's a decision to work with the Jurchen people. This is a group of people that live in the region. They're going to be working with the Chinese to try to resist the Khitan people. It is successful, but the Jurchen people will end up kind of backstabbing China and will take some of the land. So what we see happening after 1126, so the Southern Song period, China will become the Southern Song. It becomes this much smaller region right here. The city of Hangzhou is here. This is the city that Marco Polo wrote about. This is earlier than he wrote about it. This is the Song dynasty before the Mongols arrive. And the Jin dynasty, which is led by the Jurchen people, kind of related to the Manchus, they will oversee the Chinese. It's largely a Chinese demographic. The people from China don't go anywhere. They're still living in the Jin dynasty, but the rulers are foreigners, not Chinese. And this area, the Jurchen people will essentially capture the capital and will move the emperor who flees, all the way to Southern Song. And so there does become a Southern Song that has to like look along the border to see, its former, shadow of itself. And that becomes the reality. The Tangut people also will fall to the Mongols when the Mongols arrive. So this entire region, including Korea, gets affected by the Mongols. But, the distinction in the Song dynasty will be significant because the Northern Song and the Southern Song periods are both a little bit different. The final kind of incursion of the Mongols will happen during the Southern Song dynasty, And it's notable because the Southern Song dynasty is weaker without the North. It is already surrounded by enemies, the Jin dynasty, there is a weak military in the Southern Song, so it is vulnerable, and that is the time that we see the largest of the Mongol incursions, begin. The last thing I'll mention, and then I'm going to end this, and we'll get back to more of this when we see each other in class. Just a couple of big takeaways about the Southern Song. Okay, the Southern Song dynasty. This is that period in Chinese history when the Mongols attack. The Southern Song is actually a pretty lengthy dynasty, and it is significant. It has its challenges, without a doubt. We know it politically gets split, and part of it goes to the Jin dynasty. The Southern Song dynasty is known for an economic revolution. It has quite a bit of industrial growth and a great deal of urbanization, city growth. We see that in Hangzhou, for example, a variety of other cities as well. The population doubles. Some of this is as a result of the Tang dynasty's invasion of Vietnam and the acquiring of a very fast growing rice that, kind of makes the population able to get a lot more nutrition, and there ends up being an incredible population boom, which leads to greater demand and greater economic activity within China. A lot of the trade that's happening in the Southern Song is happening in China from one location to another, not only like exports out, although that's happening also. We see this as a time of growth of cities, lots of markets, and paper money. The Song dynasty becomes incredibly sophisticated with paper money. First, it's offered by businesses who make it available so that people can buy their stuff. And then there's also the central government rather, that will make and control paper money. There's a very significant specialization of production by region. Porcelain would be a great example of this, very specific kinds of porcelain that are crafted, and technologies organized around this. In particular regions of China, another region of China might have a different good, so very, very specific production and specialization. There is high technology and industrialization. This is a time of use of iron, for example. This is a time of a great deal of interest in manufacturing to a certain extent. So there is a great deal of industrial capacity that grows and grows. And the capital of the Southern Song will be the city of Hangzhou, which is a huge city. It grows tremendously. This is also a time of strong rule of law and civil administration. The political system that was created by the Sui has, to some degree, gotten larger. The bureaucracy, the layers of government are much more large in the Song dynasty. On one hand, there's a great deal of government control, and that's a good thing. There is a strong rule of law. Confucianism is going to be embedded into government laws. At the same time, you also have a great deal of expense because the government is so top heavy in the Southern Song dynasty. It's so large. More people are taking the civil exam than ever before. More people are placed into government jobs than ever before. And it's very, very expensive for the government to pay for all of this. And it lends itself to some governmental economic problems. This is going to be a time of a great deal of diversity. There's a lot of different religions, a lot of different people who are traveling through the Southern Song to trade. There's a great deal of diversity within the society. This is also a time, this is a really important takeaway. The Southern Song will see a great deal of weak military. The scholars are the rock stars of the Southern song. They are the people who lead government. They are the people who have kind of great credentials because they have taken these really challenging exams. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but just kind of recognize we're trying to accomplish two things, and we've done a little bit in this slideshow. One is looking at the rise of the Mongols and some of the Mongols' decision making and where they started to conquest. It's important to recognize that the Mongols don't only go to China, they will conquer other areas as well. But we're going to start and stay interested for a while in China. So look at this as like a case study of sorts. And China, at the time the Mongols will conquer, they conquer piece by piece, the Jin dynasty first, but by the time the end of the song is reached and the Mongols have acquired political control of China, it will be the grandson of Genghis Khan. Okay, be well, everybody. I will see you in class. Short reading and a couple of questions. It won't be due until Friday, but use some class time on Tuesday to work on it. Okay, be well.